Well, it's time for a message again. This one is going to be entitled Global Warming or Global Warning. With the spate of earthquakes, earth calamities, floods, threats of war from North Korea, Russia, Iran, and the like, the mind has to wonder, what in the world is going on? What in the world is going on? Doesn't it seem like things, including the weather, are getting worse? Well, we know that they're getting worse. There's a couple of reasons we know that, because we're told that by the media. Some say the weather is due to global warming, but that didn't pan out, so they wanted to change it to climate change because they were trying to tax us, called a carbon tax. So what has global warming got to do with taxes? Everything has to do with taxes. And the whole world, the Paris Accords, the whole Megillah was for the world to get money so that they would somehow cure global warming. It makes no sense. I'm not saying it's a hoax. I'll get into that in just a minute. Global warming or global warning? Let's keep going. They had to change it to climate change, by the way, because it was terribly freezing weather. So then they said, well, yeah, but this is due to global, we can't say warming. Let's call it climate change. In any event, man is destroying the world, they say. Well, so climate change came about that way there. And they, meaning the media and liberal scientists, have an agenda. They push every incident that happens as severe or catastrophic weather. I live in North Carolina. I moved from Massachusetts, where it got mighty cold up there, and in 2014 we had 114 inches of snow. Well, so even Massachusetts, by the way, my weatherman up there, Eric Fisher, Channel 4 Boston, said, you know, this is catastrophic. This is a record. We've never broken this record. 114.6 inches of snow. It's a record. So they build and they build and they build. Now I live in North Carolina, as I say, and we have a meteorologist here. His name is Eric too. That's not his name, Eric too. It's Eric Thomas, Channel 3, WBT TV. In any event, I watch old Eric, and he has what they call first alert day. If it rains, there's a first alert day. And the hurricane thing, it's a first alert day because eventually North Carolina is going to get rain as a result of the hurricane in Texas and the hurricane happening out in the Gulf, just off Florida coast right now. So they blamed the snow in Massachusetts on climate change. Do I believe in climate change, you might ask? Well, yes, I do believe in climate change because it changes. It changed 50 years ago, 100 years ago, but we are breaking records right now. So we have to say, I have to agree that there is global warning, not warming, global warning going on right now. Do I think global warming or climate change is a hoax? Not now. At first, like I say, global warming was initiated by our dear friend Al Gore. And Al Gore, and his idea was to frighten the population into throwing money at the cause, and that would have been trillions of dollars worldwide. After a while, it became clear that the heavens were showing us signs. So yes, global warning is happening right now, I believe. Lately, there have been unprecedented tornadoes, earthquakes, and flooding. Tsunamis overtook places like Haiti and Indonesia, killing thousands. And Haiti has had its share of earthquakes as well. Now we are beginning to set worldwide records, though. That's why I say Global warming? No. Global warming? I think so. This year and recently, Texas, we all saw that on the news. Unless you live in Texas, then you are living in it still. But they had Hurricane Harvey, where a historic flooding of over 55 inches of rain took place. Let's take a peek up here behind me, or on the monitor, at some of the pictures, a couple of pictures of Hurricane Harvey and how it devastated the people in Texas. While that's playing, science and the media tie everything to global warming or climate change. Do I think these catastrophes are due to climate change caused by man? No, absolutely not. I don't. Do I believe mankind is polluting the atmosphere? Yes, absolutely. We could see it. Los Angeles, China, India, you name it, the poorer countries, they don't care about polluting the atmosphere. All they care about is moolah, the money. Is greedy, careless mankind polluting our rivers and streams in Boston Harbor and whatever with their chemical dumps? Yes, we've got one going on right now where the state is looking into a chemical plant in North Carolina dumping 3 different types of DuPont chemicals into the rivers, and the rivers flow downstream 100 miles, and it's a drinking water source for some cities and towns. So yes, mankind is polluting the rivers and streams and wreaking havoc, and I said greedy because it's all about money. Could they put it in barrels somewhere? Could they manufacture barrels that will never decay? Sure they could. But they don't. They just dump it in the river because it's convenient. So they build their plants on the river. So the answer to that is yes, greedy man is polluting the rivers and polluting the atmosphere. So is that causing climate change? No. No, has nothing. Polluting a river has nothing to do with climate change. So let's ponder for just a moment the possibility that God, who controls the winds and the elements, is getting ready for the end times that he speaks of in his Bible. Let's first go back into the Old Testament so that we can see what the Old Testament prophet Isaiah had to say about what would take place today. The Samaria is a place, as you know, we're still talking about Samaria, but Samaria is a place where people were getting really away from God. They were turning really, really evil. So Isaiah said, "What sorrow awaits the proud city of Samaria, the glorious crown of the drunks of Israel? It sits at the head of a fertile valley, but its glorious beauty will fade like a flower. It is the pride of a people brought down by wine." So this is how they were living at the time. And Isaiah the prophet said, and continues to say, "For the Lord," that's God, "will send a mighty army against Samaria, and like a mighty hailstorm and a torrential rain, they will burst upon it like a surging flood, like Hurricane Harvey did in Houston and other parts of Texas." And Isaiah said, "and smash it to the ground." So God sent a warning out to Samaria, really, through devastation to get their attention. Would they turn? Stay tuned. So when people of the Old Testament became very sinful and turned their backs on God, he brought floods their way. Do you remember the great flood of Noah? If you believe the Bible, which I do, then there was a great flood that killed all of the people on the earth except for Noah and 7 members of his family. And the Noah's Ark full of 2x2 animals and so forth. Some were 7, doves and whatnot. So the same thing applies in the days of the New Testament as it did in the Old Testament, and it applies today. The same exact philosophy or the way God works. Let's look at what Jesus said about the Noah's flood that brought judgment to the earth. We find that over in Matthew chapter 24, verse 39. He says this, "And man was warned by Noah, but they didn't believe God's warning, not until the flood came and took them all away," meaning killed them all. "So shall also be the coming of the Son of Man." That's Jesus. He says it's going to be the same exact way the day that I return and come back in the clouds, called the rapture, to pick up my saints, those who believe and trust in me as their Lord and Savior, and I'm going to take them to heaven. So it's going to be the same way as it was in the days of Noah. It'll be the same thing when Jesus returns, as he promised, to get his saints and take them and himself back to heaven. And verse 7 says this, "And they, the apostles of Jesus, asked Jesus, saying, 'Master, but when shall these things be? And what sign will it be when these things shall come to pass?' Well, Jesus said this, 'Take heed that you don't be deceived, for many shall come in my name in the end times,'" just before I come. "I am Christ, and the time draws near." So don't go after these false Christs that are going to come around preaching the word and telling you. Even Sun Myung Moon of North Korea or Korea said one time that he was Jesus. So there's a whole bunch of those guys around here. "But when ye shall hear of wars and commotions, don't be terrified, for these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet." So Jesus said, look, you're going to hear of wars and rumors of wars and commotions all across the earth. Don't be terrified, for these things must happen before I come. "Also, nation shall rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom." Well, as most of us know, that's already been happening forever. "Now, great earthquakes," he said, "shall be in diverse or various or many places all over the earth, and famines and pestilences and fearful sights and great signs shall there be from heaven." Then he said something unusual. "But before all these things, these great records that are happening, floods and record-breaking snowfall and record-breaking earthquakes, before that happens," he says, Satan and his hordes are going to lay hands on you and persecute you, delivering you to the synagogues. That tells me they're going to persecute both Jew and Christians. And you're going to be brought up before them in the court systems or killed for my name's sake. Well, is that happening? "And great earthquakes all over the world shall take place, and diseases." Ever hear of Ebola? That's new. Zika virus? That's new. And he says, "And fearful sights and signs from heaven shall appear. Unprecedented floods bring great fear." I know if I lived in Texas, these guys bailed out. I mean, they had to evacuate. They bailed out real quick. Christians are being persecuted, by the way, right now. They're being killed by the thousands in Arab countries. You see that on the news. That is supposed to happen before all of these record-breaking things happen, signs and wonders, if you will, from the heavens. And this was all predicted by Jesus himself 2,000 years ago. Are you aware? Are you aware of what's going on? I think you are, because that seems to be the talk of the town lately. Wow, look at that devastation in Texas. Record-breaking. Look at how much water happened. The earthquake, are you watching for signs? The prophecy is coming true. Once Jesus returns to gather his saints and bring them to heaven, it's going to be too late for you to decide at that instant that you need a Savior, because the Savior has come, taken the saints, and they're gone. You don't have a chance at that point. You don't want to remain on this earth when Jesus comes to take those who have trusted him for their salvation. You don't want to be here. You really don't. I can tell you this much. If you're here, I'm not going to tell you how devastating it's going to be. I'll let you do a little homework. Just skip on over to Revelation chapter 13 and read about it, and then you'll know. So you don't want to be here if that happens. What you need to do, like people preparing for the earthquake, or people preparing for the catastrophic Cat 5 unprecedented record-breaking earthquake in Florida, which is on the screen. When that happens, people prepare for it. They're boarding up, they're doing this, they're doing that. I have noticed something, however. It seems funny to me too. But when catastrophes happen, like 9/11, everyone runs to church for a few Sundays. But then when the calamity, the flood, the earthquake, the typhoon, the tsunami, when the devastation is over and things return slowly back to normal, it's like they slowly move away from God again and back to their old habits. Why not just do it right? Why not just ask the good Lord to come into your life and save your soul? It's very simple to do. You can find the prayer of salvation on my website. I'll put a link right here if you want to. And take care of that now before it's too late. A lot of people say, you know, I'm going to do something later on. And later on never gets here. You know, they get wiped out in a typhoon, a flood, earthquake, things like that. Fear. Fear is happening right now. Fear. People are leaving Florida there's only one road out of Key West, Route 1 I think it is. And all those automobiles are heading out of town. They're forced to evacuate. But they're leaving for fear, by the way, because if they get caught there, they know, like in Texas, over 60 some odd people have died, drowned, something, because they said, I'll do it later. I'll evacuate later. And they couldn't. They went to the gas station to get gas. There was no gasoline. So they couldn't get out of town. So now what? So now they have nothing to talk about anymore because they're dead. In any event, we feel sorry for those folks. We certainly pray for those people. And in any devastation area, we all pray for them. We donate money to them. We try to help them when we can. And we fail to help ourselves by looking at the signs that God told us were going to happen. And we're looking around and we're saying, we know something's screwy. I'm telling you what's screwy. It's not global warming, it's global warning. Take heed and do something about it. I'll see you guys next time.